this video, we will explore items from the 13 through 18 vocabulary set that are frequently gotten wrong, either because they remind us of an English word or because they remind us of other Latin words. As with the 1 through 12 video, you have an accompanying graphic organizer that you can use to write the Latin and English words and get just a little more practice keeping these sorted out. So, aedificium, auxilium, and consilium. These are all words that end in IUM from that vocabulary set, and they're mistaken for each other. Ways to remember the difference. If you think of the English word edifice, okay, the word edifice has, basically, aedificium has edifice in it. It's another way to say a building. Auxilium, help. We do have in English auxiliary. Okay, auxiliary is something that helps something else. Consilium, plan. The word council is ultimately derived from it. Alter, alterum versus ceteri, and also alius, alia, aliud. Okay, so alter means the other or the second. Ceteri is plural and it means the others or the rest, like the rest of the things, the rest of the people. Okay, so one way to keep these straight is again, ceteri, okay, ceteri has a plural ending and so these are understood to be kind of plural in concept. Alter is used to describe like one thing versus another thing. Okay, so like say we had it, for instance, in Caesar, when you have like one part of Gaul and then the other or a second part of Gaul. Alius is an adjective that means like another of something, not the other, which is always a distinction from one thing to another. Ipse versus iste. Ipse means himself, herself, themselves. You can also use it with like ego. It's like ego ipse would mean I, myself. Tu ipse, you, yourself. And the way to remember this is that the se of ipse is in fact the same se that we have in the word self or selves. Now, iste means that. It frequently has a negative connotation. So, for instance, if you say, ooh, I hate that guy, okay, you would use iste for that. You would not use ille. So, ille means that, where you really want to make the distinction between this and that. Iste means that, but it has a negative connotation. Post versus postquam, versus postridie, versus postea, versus postremo, okay? Post is a preposition that means after or behind. So if you're walking behind someone, it would be post. Postquam is the conjunction after. These aren't so much the problem. Postridie, hopefully you can remember that postridie means the next day, because like hodie, today, and quotidie, every day, postridie has the word day in it. Now, postea and postremo, that is where you've got a real problem. And I don't know what to tell you besides write them out several times. Repetition always helps. Postea means afterwards. Postremo, finally. Ubi, ubi, and ibi. Okay, so the first time you learned ubi, it meant where, and it meant where for a long time. You know, ubi est amicus tuus, where is your friend? Then you learned later in your Latin that ubi can also mean when, and then you've got ibi, which means there. Audeo, audere, versus audio. Audeo means to dare. Now, you have audio, which means to hear or to listen, and that's the only one of these two that you saw for a very long time, and then only in book 2 did you encounter the verb that means to dare, and there's really no good way to remember the difference. I guess just the fact that you're aware of two different verbs that have these different meanings. When you see a verb that starts A-U-D, you just need to be thinking, which of the two is it before I translate. Hick, hike, hoke versus heek versus hook. So the demonstrative adjective hick, hike, hoke means this, but there is also a word heek, which has a long mark if your text has long marks, but of course if it doesn't have long marks, it's going to be identical to the word that means this. So heek, pronounced that way, means here. Then we also have hook, which means to this place. We would like hither would be the older English way of saying hook. Diu versus deus versus dies. Diu means for a long time. It's an interesting case where what takes us 4 syllables in English, Latin accomplishes it in 2. The word diu, for a long time. Deus, which, it's similar in appearance. Deus means God. Think of the English word deity, which is another way to say a God. And then dies is day. Just remember Felix dies natalis that we sing so often. Dies means day. Fortasse versus fortis versus fortiter. Fortasse is a word in the 13 through 18 vocabulary set. It means perhaps or maybe. The adjective fortis means brave or strong. The adverb fortiter means bravely. Now, it's not in the 13 through 18 set, but worth learning. There is another word lurking out there. Forte in Latin means by chance. Libenter versus libertus, liber, and liberalus. Libenter is an adverb that means gladly. And then we've got from stage 1 to 12, we've also got all those other words that begin with, in this case, L-I-B-E-R that they share in common. Libertus, freedman. The word liber means book, and also the adjective liber means free, and liberalus means generous. Caput, genitive capitis versus capit, and then also added in the 13 through 18, coipit. So caput means head, capitis is the genitive, and this is where we do derive words like capital, okay? So the capital is the head of both government and also the head of a column. And capit is a verb that means takes. Now, coipit, meaning began, it's an interesting verb. It only occurs in the past tense, and that's why it's past tense, began. Numquam versus nunc. Now, numquam means never. Numquam did evolve into the Spanish word nunca, okay? And that's where sometimes people make the mistake when they say nunc, they think of nunca, which means no. But numquam, never, nunc, now. Facilis, facile, and facit. Facilis is the adjective that means easy. Facile is the adverb that means easily, and facit is the verb that, of course, means makes or does. Now, what makes this even trickier is that the neuter form of facilis is facile, okay? So there is an adverb facile, which is easily, versus the neuter form. You say, facile est tibi, it is easy for you. So you could theoretically, it would never be wrong to write easy for facile because your defense would always be, oh, I was thinking of the neuter form. Redeo, redire, redii versus reddit versus rideo, reci. So redeo means to return in the sense of like, I went home like I went somewhere and then I returned home. You would use reddeo. Reddit means return in the sense of give something back. So in other words, like I borrowed a book from my friend and then I returned it. You would use reddit for that. And then another verb that has an R and a D in it. Remember, rideo, to laugh or to smile. Think of the English words like to deride and derision. Those are very negative words. But they are related to laugh and smile. And worth adding in here, Latin has another verb that means to return. So revenit is a synonym of reddeo, meaning both of those verbs mean like a person went somewhere and then returned.